Elizabeth Warren is hosting a town hall in Austin, Texas tonight as she continues to rise in Democratic primary polls. The Massachusetts senator is receiving the highest level of support in the first 18 Democratic primary and caucus states, according to the latest CBS News battleground tracker. On Thursday, she'll be center stage in Houston next to former Vice President Joe Biden for the next Democratic debate. Despite her rise nationally, a recent pre-debate poll has her tied for fourth in Texas with former HUD Secretary and San Antonio Mayor Julian Castro. They trail Joe Biden, Beto O'Rourke, and Bernie Sanders. Joining me now are Ed O'Keefe and Caitlin Huey-Burns. Ed is a CBS News political correspondent currently getting rained on at the site of Warren's Austin rally. Caitlin is a CBSN political reporter with me in New York. Thank you both for joining us. So Ed, first of all, thank you so much for braving the weather for us. But what is the message that Senator Elizabeth Warren is hoping to sell there in Texas?
Well, it's not much different than it would be anywhere else, Elaine, except for this. While she's the senator from Massachusetts and perceived by many to be sort of an East Coast-focused, East Coast-based politician, remember, she has deep roots here in Texas and in Oklahoma. She got her degree from the University of Houston. She taught here at the University of Texas, Austin. And it's there that she really began to develop her interest and her expertise in bankruptcy law, which, of course, led to all the other work that she later did. So she's expected to sort of play that up here in Austin, at least tonight, where they're expecting anywhere between perhaps 4,000 to 6,000 people. That's a good size. Not the largest crowd she's had, but certainly a notable one in a state where there are two other candidates running and where she is a top figure, but not necessarily the top vote-getter just yet.
And Ed, we're also seeing one of the two Texans in the race, Beto O'Rourke, name a Texas state leadership team for his campaign. How important will the Texas primary be to his campaign and for the field at large?
Well, frankly, Elaine, it'll be a marvel if Beto O'Rourke gets to Super Tuesday, March 3rd, with the Texas primary scheduled for that day. Given that he is polling far lower, it'll be a wonder to see if he has the money left and the ability, frankly, to be a factor in that Texas primary, but he certainly wants to be. So does Julian Castro, the other Lone Star State native who is in the race. Both of them eager to show that they can attract support in this state. Many believe Texas is one that, if not this time, perhaps next time, will be a bigger battleground, and so they want to help be a part of that. But Beto O'Rourke hiring today a former Stacey Abrams campaign official from Georgia to run his field operations here. Of course, O'Rourke knows the state well, traveled to every county during his Senate campaign, and hasn't obviously had enough time or ability to focus too much here yet because he has to go out and campaign in all those other states. But it's also a sign that he believes he's in this for the long haul, or at least until March. And it will be interesting to see whether or not he's able to sustain the support. Remember, in our Battleground Tracker survey that came out on Sunday, when you look at the estimated delegate totals, O'Rourke was actually fifth behind Biden, Warren, Sanders, and Kamala Harris, in that he had 34 delegates. Most of those 34 delegates were coming from here in Texas, with the belief in our forecasts, at least so far, that he would be able to get at least 15% of the vote. So we'll see whether or not he holds on that long.
All right, Ed O'Keefe, we're going to let you seek some shelter there. It looks like the weather is worsening by the second. Thank you so much, Ed. All right, Ed.
See you right over there.
Thank you so much. Go get somewhere safe. We appreciate it. Caitlin, let me ask you, there was a story in the New York Times this week focusing on Senator Warren's pledge not to attend private fundraisers, those big donor fundraisers. What did we actually learn?
Right. Well, she made a decision early on in the campaign to not hold fundraisers. Instead, she wanted to focus on the grassroots, focus on that one-on-one interaction with voters. But as the New York Times reported, that standard did not apply to her Senate campaign in 2018. She ran without competition in 2018, really, and was able to raise a lot of money. And in doing so, she raised money from bigger donors. Now she's able to use her Senate campaign fund for her presidential campaign fund. She was able to transfer that over, as lawmakers are able to do. What's interesting about that is that provided her something of a cushion, really, early on in the campaign. We talked a lot this week about how Warren has invested early on the ground, hiring lots of organizers and key staff in early states. That has started to pay off, but that money that she transferred from her Senate campaign really helped in that effort. And so what I'm wondering is if any of the other candidates try to make this an issue, if they're trying to kind of gain ground in the debate next week. We know that she has kind of used this topic to take some not so subtle swipes at people like Joe Biden, who do host big dollar fundraisers. If she brings that up in the debate this week, does Biden come back and make this point?
So let me ask you about Senator Bernie Sanders. Security at his Denver rally Monday told our CBS News campaign reporter Kara Cordy that more than 10,000 people were in attendance. And a few weeks ago, we saw Elizabeth Warren draw crowds of 12 and 15,000 in Denver and Minneapolis. I realize this is sort of difficult to kind of measure, but what is it that we should take away from these very large crowds?
I think we certainly should be paying attention to it. I think crowds at this point give us a sense of enthusiasm around a campaign. And in such a crowded field, that's really critical. Remember, we still have like 20 candidates running for president.
Right.
So if you're able to attract 10, 12, 14,000 people at a rally, I think that really shows kind of where the energy could be. Remember in 2016, Donald Trump was getting huge crowds, people lining up in the cold or the extreme heat to go and see him. Similar with Bernie Sanders in 2016. He didn't end up getting the nomination, but it was a sign that there was something there. So I think we have to be paying attention to it. It's not the end-all be-all. It's not the determining factor, and certainly the Biden campaign argues that it's not. But it is something to keep in mind as we're kind of tracking where this party is headed.
All right, another metric to try to read the tea leaves here as we get closer to 2020. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much, Caitlin.